Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make American pancakes, fluffy American pancakes. These are a good alternative to the traditional pancakes that you would normally have on Shrove Tuesday. The first thing that we need is to take our dry ingredients, and we're going to take 135 grams of plain flour and we're going to sift them into a bowl. You'll find the recipe for this will be on the website with all the details of how much of each ingredient that you need. So there's 135 grams of plain flour. We're now going to add a teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to put in there half a teaspoon of salt, and we're going to add to that 2 tablespoons of caster sugar, and we're simply going to sieve those together to get rid of any lumps that there might be. So just sift them gently, and at the end, I'm sure you would all do this anyway, if there's any lumps there, press them through with the back of a spoon. So those are our dry ingredients mixed together. The next thing that we do is we take a large egg and we're going to whisk that together with some milk, and we have 130 milliliters of milk, and we can either add 2 tablespoons of molten butter or we can add some cooking oil. I tend to use rapeseed oil. The recipe that I work from actually suggests that you could use olive oil. It's probably easier to use oil, but if you are going to use butter, just make sure you let it cool down a bit before you add it to the eggs. Otherwise, fairly obviously, you'll end up with scrambled eggs. So simply take the large egg, a balloon whisk or similar, whisk it up, and to that we're going to add our milk, and we're then going to add oil. So just mix it together till it's all nicely mixed, and then what we've got to do is to simply add liquid to our solid. So over comes the sifted flour, etc. Into that goes our milk and egg mixture. Just pour it in. At the start it'll look pretty lumpy and horrible, but as long as you work at it, it will eventually become a nice smooth batter. So just try and incorporate it all. Don't worry if this seems extremely thick, because that is actually what you want. You want it to be nice and thick. And you can see already that any lumps that were there have disappeared or are disappearing as I beat it with a balloon whisk. So that looks quite smooth, and you can see from its consistency it's quite thick. A bit more of a stir because there are still a few little lumps in there, and then that's probably enough. Now you have to leave the batter mix standing for a few minutes before you cook your pancakes. And just before any of you are getting very excited, these pancakes are not the sort that you can flip, so you are not going to see me trying to toss pancakes and making a complete mess of it. I'll show you how to turn them later on. So we're leaving that for 5 minutes or so now to just rest, and then we will cook them. So now we're going to cook our pancakes. As you can see, I have a special pancake frying pan here. You don't need one of those, it's just got a very low lip to it. You'll need a ladle for your batter, and we've found that to keep them separate once you've cooked them, it's a good idea to have some baking parchment to lay them on once they're cooked. My frying pan is on a medium heat, and we're going to use butter in the frying pan to cook them in. So we've got a small amount of butter, which hopefully will melt fairly quickly when it gets onto the frying pan. If it doesn't, it means it's not quite hot enough. As with all pancakes, sometimes the first one that you cook can be a bit of a disaster, so I'll get my excuses in first. We want to get the butter well and truly melted and around the pan. When you cook them, it's hard to say exactly how long to cook them for each side. I would recommend you think of about the minute time period, but trial and error will probably get it more accurate later on. So that butter is nearly melted now, so we're nearly ready to go. When we pour the batter in, what we're really looking for on the top surface are some bubbles forming. Now, I don't normally bother, but I am actually going to put a timer on here, so just in case I forget what I'm doing. So here we go. It is supposed to be thick, they are not supposed to be huge, so let's see what happens. So we'll pop that on there, and we're going to wait and see until we see some little bubbles creeping over the top or creeping out of the top surface, and that's then normally a sign that it's about ready to turn over. Now, one of the nice things about these pancakes is they are equally good as a savoury or as a sweet product. So once you've cooked them, you can have, if you like, what fillings you want, although you probably end up putting them on top, not on the inside. And another really nice thing about them is they freeze really well. And once you've frozen them, you can keep them for a couple of months or so, fetch them out, defrost them, and then simply put them in the microwave for 20 seconds on high, or maybe 30 seconds depending on how powerful your microwave is. We actually had these for our breakfast on Christmas Day. Marjorie doesn't particularly like savoury breakfast, so she had American pancakes with fruit and cream, I think it was. I had mine with bacon and maple syrup, and I'd actually cooked them halfway through December, so they came out of the freezer, gave us a nice easy breakfast on Christmas Day morning. Now, that's saying that a minute. Whether it will be ready or not is another matter. I am going to try and turn it. It's not quite ready yet, so as I said, normally the first one doesn't work particularly well, so I will just up my heat a bit, which is probably not too much of a good idea because that's when you start to burn them, and we'll just leave it a little bit longer. I haven't really got the bubbles coming up yet, but we will see what happens. There's just one or two little bubbles trying to start to appear. So you need to sort of experiment with the temperature, you need to experiment with how long you need to leave them. You can see there's bubbles appearing around this part here now. So I'm going to attempt to turn this over, and this is normally where it gets very, very messy for your first one, as you can see. So turn it over, and it's not really hot enough, my pan. I can see that by looking at the colour. So I'm going to up it a little bit. I'm still going to carry on because I'm sure this will be edible, even if it doesn't look very good. And again, you simply wait about a minute, and once a minute has gone past, it will hopefully be cooked. Now, normally the second one that you do is much better than the first one. And I have to say that normally when I make these, I make twice the quantities so that you can stock your freezer up with them. The recipe for this will appear on the website, www.adelparishchurch.org.uk, and if you can't access that and you want to get a copy of the recipe, you can email us on adelparishchurch@gmail.com, and we will send you a copy of the recipe so you know how to make them. Also, if you would like to make a donation to church, because that is one of the reasons why we're doing this, if you have had Alison's newsletter, it says in there how to donate. If you haven't had that newsletter, again, if you drop us an email at adelparishchurch@gmail.com, we will forward to you details of how you can make a donation. So that's looking a little bit better now. I wouldn't serve it as a dinner party, obviously, but I'm going to fetch that one out. I'm going to now put another bit of butter in. Just fetch that last little bit out. Just be careful because this is obviously hot. I've got fairly asbestos fingers. And we will put another knob of butter in there. That sounds a bit more like it. I'm now going to get kitchen roll and spread it around a bit like this. There we go. Right, that's going now. Just drop that off, and then what we need to do is to get completely molten, and we'll put our next one in. Let it spread out. Leave it for the minute. And what I would do then is with the first one, get another piece of baking parchment on top of it, ready to store the next one on. So we're going to leave that now until it's cooked, hopefully cooked, and with a bit of luck I will be able to turn it a bit more successfully than the first one. You'll probably get about 4 pancakes out of this, so if you've got a big family you will need double quantities. And that is certainly frying away at the edges this time. I'm going to stick to my minute and see if it's any better than the first one. And there are some bubbles starting to appear on the surface of my pancake, which is a sign that it's probably approaching cooked. So let's see. No, I think it's still a bit soft at the edge, so I'm going to leave it a little bit longer. One of the things that you do notice making these is that when you turn them over you do splatter it everywhere, because obviously the top surface is still uncooked. There's definitely bubbles appearing now, so I will see if I can get my spatula underneath and persuade it to turn over. Here we go. That's looking a bit better. And again, well, probably less than a minute on that side now. We'll just wait and see. I'll give it about 20 seconds, I think, and now have a look and see if it's cooked through. When you're making big batches of these, it's sometimes a good idea to wipe your pan out between them, because the butter tends to go brown as it burns away. So we'll just get my spatula, have a look, see what the other side is like. That's looking good. We'll just leave it a bit longer. That's fine. Put that on the baking parchment, more baking parchment on the top. I'm going to give this a wipe out now before I start on my next one. Try and get rid of any batter that's left in there, because you will end up with some. And here we go. I'm going to continue cooking. I'll show you some pictures after this video of some of these pancakes with their toppings. If you do make them, hope you enjoy them, and why not post some pictures of them on our Facebook group page so we can see how you've got on. So I'm going to continue cooking now. Hope you enjoy the recipe, hope they work for you, and I'm looking forward to trying some of these later on today. Goodbye.